All right, welcome everyone to the latest episode of the NetOps Expert. As always, my name is Jeremy Rosbeck, and I am the technical evangelist here for the network management solution by Broadcom. And I'm so happy to be joined today by Nestor Falcone. Nestor, can you tell us a little bit about your career, what you have been doing, and what you're doing now for customers at Broadcom?
Yeah, hi Jeremy. Thank you for having me here. Nestor Falcone. I'm a solution architect based in Barcelona. I have been working for Broadcom for about 12 years now in different roles, SWAT, pre-sales, and solution architect now. And right now I'm pretty much working with customers day in and day out, listening to their challenges and see how we can help them with our capabilities within the AOD NetOps portfolio.
Excellent. Thank you, Nestor. And as previous recordings have suggested, and the folks that listen to our vlog and our podcast know that we talk about IT, but specifically on this video and podcast, we talk about network management, network monitoring, network observability, network visibility, whatever you want to call it. It's a 30-plus year IT field where the network has been and still continues to be the backbone of all of our digital and customer experiences. I must say, though, Nestor, I am really excited that the network is finally in the spotlight after these many years. It's not really about a set it and forget it, but it's really about maintaining up-to-date and real-time resiliency of today's network. So I'm going to ask you why you think the network is in the spotlight now, and why do we have to keep it in real-time resilient as possible as it relates to our topic today of network performance. Tell me why you think the network's in the spotlight today, and why do we need rapid and accurate isolation of network performance for today's digital experiences?
Well, if we think about it, we are changing how we're using the network, right? Before it was easy. We had like direct connections between data center and the offices and so on. Now, with the explosion of cloud and SaaS, we're putting so much pressure on we're putting so much pressure on network delivery. Everybody wants instant access to the applications in the cloud. That means that we need, when we monitor the network, we need to have a full visibility of all the different layers, right? Let's put an example. I'm now talking to you in this WebEx. We are going through Wi-Fi, access network, WAN, WebEx Cloud app, and so on. So if something goes wrong, where do we start looking at? It can take maybe 20 minutes to find out or to isolate the network domain. So in my opinion, visibility is crucial. We need to be able to understand the different domains involved in a connection and quickly isolate where is the problem. That's going to save us a lot of time and money. Instead of going into a war room with the responsible application infra network, we can just quickly pinpoint where is the problem. There are many capabilities needed to achieve that. It sounds easy, but it's pretty hard to achieve, to have the visibility and to consolidate all that data together.
So you bring up a great point. As folks have heard, when I ran data centers, it was a set it and forget it. It was direct connections. You knew every single hop, every single route, every single packet, every single user. But like you said, this WebEx that we're doing right now, this video, you're halfway around the world from me. You can imagine how many network hops and devices and technologies, old and new, that this experience is delivered through. How do you begin to find that network needle in a haystack if, say, for instance, your audio was breaking up right now, or you were buffering, or you couldn't hear me as clear as I could hear you? Where do you begin? How do you begin to isolate that as quickly as possible? And I know you have best practices. Broadcom has best practices around how to achieve rapid and accurate isolation of what is a completely new and complex network delivery experience. I know we recently put out a white paper around this, and we're going to let our listeners download it and provide that link. But in the white paper, we have various areas that I know you want to cover, whether it's advanced analytics or intelligent workflows for troubleshooting. And maybe if we have time, we can get into some customer examples of how they use this. But why don't you start off with what I know you believe is very crucial to any network management and monitoring strategy, which is a unified data model. Can you explain to our listeners exactly what that means and why you think it's important for today's topic?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, how do we achieve this rapid and accurate isolation? It takes time and effort. So one fundamental approach when we are going through network deliveries that spans through so many different vendors, domain technologies, virtualization, right? It's to be able to have a unified and scalable data model, as you said. We have disparate data models. When we come to monitor the network, is no longer SNMP only, right? We have many controllers, many components virtualizing the network access, network function virtualization. So it's a chaotic link between two edges. So we need to be able to bring all that data together to acquire the data and unify it and correlate it. So we can compare it. For example, we could look at performance metrics related to wireless along with performance metrics related to one technology, etc. So it's fundamental we provide as a solution a single pane of glass where we can have that visibility that we were talking about before. And once we have that, we can apply, we bubble up under the term AI and advanced analytics, and there are many algorithms under that umbrella. But then is when we start producing quality data that helps the operator, the users, to understand what's going on. And instead of looking at terabytes of data, they can just look at maybe 3-4 insights that tell us where is the issue in that network data.
So you bring up a good point. I like the fact, because I'm sure we're probably scaring some audience listeners out there when we say collect all the data, data. Well, where do I store it and how much is it going to cost me? And when I want to run a query on it, is it going to take hours to give me some answer? Explain to me how we collect all of this data, network data, whether it's performance, fault, flow, logs, configs, managed or unmanaged networks, you name it. When we collect it, why is it so important to only surface a few metrics that matter to the user? And how does that lead to some of the best practices around the AI and algorithms on that data?
Yeah, you point out right, Jeremy. We have so many different layers. It's no longer routers or switches. We have, you said it, performance metrics, flows, modern networks, so different controllers. So we need, as a best practice, a solution that is able to, let's say, to talk many languages. Not only classical SNMP, should be able to connect to different controllers, get that data, and unify that in a single repo, right? We have been talking about this for years now, but it's very important we are able to do the data collection in a vendor agnostic way and to tackle all the domains. So we should be able to trigger synthetic testing to measure user experience, to connect to the controller of an SD-WAN technology to get performance events and so on. And the most important, to do a noise reduction there. We should be able to look at all that data, and we as humans, we no longer have the capacity to filter that. We need to be able to rely on those algorithms to do the heavy lifting for us and surface quality data. And that's, my opinion, the most important. If we have the technology, if we have the compute power to do that now, let's leverage those algorithms to do the analytics for us, and then just surface that data and say, hey, it's not the wireless, it's not the SaaS, it's not the cloud, maybe it's your SD-WAN segment which is having the degradation. So having that possibility to discard quickly where it's not the error and just focus on the problematic area, that is gold.
So tell me, we talked about the importance of data. We talked about the unification of that data, the cleaning of that data, the correlation of that data, and even presenting that data in a unified language that network teams can understand quickly, even when that data is comprised of multi-vendor tech. Like Juniper has its own June OS that it uses. Cisco has its own Cisco OS that it uses, et cetera, et cetera. These are languages that are spoken differently. So we've correlated, we've cleaned that data, we've normalized it, and we only surface the metrics that are important for rapid and accurate isolation. But how do we do that, Nestor? Like, say, for example, a core switch in a data center died, and it's a I'm going back to years, 6500 catalyst switch with a dozen blades in it, a dozen 48 port blades. So I don't know what the hell 48 times 12 is, but if that entire switch dies, you're talking about a hell of a lot of alarms, a hell of a lot of outage notifications, a hell of a lot of devices that are offline. How do we achieve accurate and rapid isolation of that when you have so much noise?
Great point. It's not easy. So I'll do my best to explain what I have in my head. So, as we said before, we need several technologies, algorithms to do this for us. One example that comes to my head for root cause analysis is what we call inductive modeling technology, IMT. In this case, the network monitoring solution is going to build like a digital twin of the monitor infrastructure. You mentioned before Cisco Catalyst, so it's going to actually make a digital copy of all those elements, a digital model, so we can compare it to like a traffic map where we can quickly identify problematic nodes. And not only that, we can also understand the impact they have in the adjacent areas. So in that sense, if one big router goes down, I only want to know that that element has gone down, and there are many symptoms that are also impacted. So I just get, let's say, one single ticket, even if I have like several dozens of elements being impacted. So that could be one technology that can help us to eliminate the noise and just to face, let's say, the root cause. And if we do that very quickly, the solution is able to have this health of the network in real time. We are saving precious time to avoid the downtime. Another technology that we can use, and it's not new, it's called baseline calculation. It's actually quite common, but the way it can help us, it's having a monitoring solution, looking at metrics, learning metric behaviors over time. Let's say we are looking at the uplink interface usage, right? And then we understand what is the normal values of this usage. And then there is a security breach, the values start showing normal behaviors. The solution should be able to generate an event and let the users know, hey, what we're seeing now, it's not normal. We have never seen this behavior before. And it's able to do that because it has learned the historical behavior of those metrics. And we don't have any, let's say, ways to do that as humans, right? We need to rely on the capabilities of the solution to do that baseline calculation for us and generate those events to identify when there are an anomaly. So anomaly detection is critical, and then root cause analysis by having an inductive modeling technology are another example of those AI and advanced analytics.
I love what you said about, say, a security incident, and the access point for that security incident is an edge network device, right? I'm going to have you on another NetOps expert where we talk about the blending of the NOC and the SOC and why it's so important. Of course, high performance, high utilization on an interface on an edge device could be the most appropriate way to identify a security incident. So we'll talk about that topic at another time. Great topic too to talk about, but give us some more examples around proactive monitoring or proactive observability with this data besides, say, baselining or inductive modeling detection. Give us some other proactive abilities that our customers out there can do with this data to achieve that rapid and accurate isolation.
Perfect. So another one kind of hot topic is how do we build projections on the metrics we have, right? So look, if we think about it, we have historical rich data that we have been collecting through different engines, collectors, and so on. So any network monitoring solution should be able to build projections on those metrics. So they are going to be goal for capacity planning. And again, if I'm collecting data on utilization of my network resources over time, and I can extrapolate or build a least square regression of those metrics, I can say, hey, if we continue using the network at this pace, which is probably ever growing with the current adoption of SaaS and cloud, in 2 months I'm going to run out of capacity, run out of resources. So we need to be able to leverage this data, build projections, see the overall trend and then generate an insight to say, heads up, we might run into a situation where we don't have enough resources to keep maintaining the operation of the network. So that is another example of how we can use this least square regression technology to understand the behavior of the network proactively and build those future projections.
You and I have talked about this for years, and while a lot of what we're talking about today might seem standard for network monitoring and management practices in some of our customers' environments, being able to tackle the low-hanging fruit of achieving observability like we're talking about right now, I'm not aware that anyone out there is ready to induct AI into network monitoring practices where it's automating everything and bouncing routers and switches without our knowledge. We're just not there yet. So being able to tackle this kind of low-hanging fruit of successes of data consolidation and correlation and proactive capacity planning, or other type of algorithmic ways to reduce noise in our NOCs today. These are all achievable successes to get closer to observability and how the industry defines it. I know another example of being more observable in today's complex networks is configuration management. Compliance, adherence. You and I know 9 out of 10 times, 8 out of 10 times, don't quote me on this, but when somebody misconfigures a device and they save the config and then they realize they've locked themselves out because that config was bad and the network is down, that is more common than we think with today's network outages, especially the ISPs and the cloud providers, the Amazons and the Googles. Why is configuration management and network device compliance so critical today? Still, it's probably one of the close to the number one reasons outages still occur even over the last 30 years. Why is it so important today? And what can users do to utilize that functionality to achieve this rapid isolation?
You're right, Jeremy. That is a quite common source of problems in network management. We have you and I have fat finger configurations in the past. So yeah, it's another component, another dimension of network operations and monitoring that is crucial. And let's be honest, it's pretty difficult to find a solution in the market that span across all performance, flow, also configuration, which we are talking about now, modern networks, and also user experience, right? Pretty much no one can do that in the market except a Broadcom solution. So when we talk about the configuration, having the option to retrieve that data correlated and having a unified portal, that is gold. Let me give you an example. We get a user experience metric alert. Like for example, we are receiving data loss when connecting to a cloud or SaaS application. If we're able to pinpoint that the problem is in our data center, and then the critical device having the issue, we can even inspect the configuration and understand if there have been a rollout, a config management, a change going on that has impacted, and we can immediately identify, clear a ticket, and roll back if needed. The key capabilities that are needed for that is like, hey, config changes, I want to receive notification. I want to be able also to run like a global synchronization or detect outliers. Like, hey, this device is not running as per the policy configuration. So all those are critical capabilities that needs to be available in any network management solution to understand, because in the end, the config of a network device is the intelligence of the network. It's where we say, these are the routines, these are the policies that I want to implement, and so on. So we need to have a clear view, a clear understanding of what is the specific configuration of each device at a given moment, and get events when that changes, when that break a policy, or when there is a security issue in the content of that configuration. So it's fundamental, as you said, network config management. We do provide that out of the box, and that is actually setting us apart when it comes to do a network observability today.
Nestor, thank you so much for that information. And, configuration management and misconfigurations and adhering to compliance policies are obviously Still so important, even after 30 plus years ago when we started into network monitoring and management. But as you can see here, and this source is from PC Magazine, network outages cost a lot of money. So you and I are talking about, rapid and accurate isolation for NOC teams to find the root cause of issues. But every second counts, right? Every hour counts, every day counts. And we can see here some of the largest outages recently, the business impact of those outages, the revenue impact of those outages. So again, so important to continually be able to manage configuration and compliance adherence, because the bottom line is that it's such an impact on revenue today, especially as you mentioned, the internet and networks being so core to today's digital experience. So I know we only have a couple topics left in our best practices for rapid and accurate isolation. But tell me a little bit more about why flow data is so important, and even anomaly detection inside of flow data for managed and unmanaged networks. And then Nestor, just remind our listeners again what we define as managed and unmanaged networks and why flow data is so important in those unmanaged areas.
Perfect. Yeah, so let's say managed networks, in the past is everything we had in the data center we could manage, control, and we were the kings of that network. Now, as we said at the beginning, with the adoption of cloud, SaaS, SD-WAN, we rely a lot on the internet. That is a managed network. We don't have any control on the ISP. We don't even know which hops the network delivery is traversing. And we have very little visibility and control on those elements. So that would be the difference between managed data center, what we own, what we monitor, and unmanaged, which is ISP, and let's say the internet, what we can say clearly. Why flow so important? So yeah, flow is actually coming from the NetFlow protocol. It's a protocol that will give us, by inspecting the header of the packets of the network, it will tell us which applications are using the network. So we can understand if we have like 40 megabits being used in a pipe, we can understand if that is Zoom traffic, Netflix traffic, business related traffic, or just other non-business related. Understanding what is it in my bandwidth, it's critical, right? Bandwidth is a finite limit resource, and we need to understand if we're making an efficient usage of that. Otherwise, we're going to end up making capacity planning for a pipe that maybe is overutilized for non-business traffic. So if I'm monitoring the network, it makes sense. I understand what is using it. It makes sense that, hey, is all these, let's say, allowed traffic, or do I have any kind of application going to unknown nodes, or be able to understand what is inside of those networks can only be achieved when we do flow monitoring, flow analysis, and be able to raise also flow anomalies. So that would be in a nutshell why it's so important to incorporate flow to the network monitoring, and why it can help us to understand the composition of those elements consuming my bandwidth.
That makes so much sense. And I want to, again, show our viewers what that can turn into when it comes to being able to understand flows as well as logs and fault and performance in those unmanaged networks like ISP and cloud providers. So a customer of ours, financial customers of ours, FIS, they talked about being able to extend their visibility beyond the edge of their networks into these unmanaged networks like ISP and cloud providers, and even into their own customers' data centers. So again, look for the link to this customer success story in the show notes. But just real quick, being able to utilize the Broadcom network management solution, especially the app meta portion that enables our customers to see network performance metrics inside of these unmanaged networks like ISP Cloud. FIS had a customer that was complaining that they had network latency when it came to utilizing an application and data that FIS hosted for them in their data center. FIS spent a year trying to troubleshoot with this customer, where the bottleneck is, where the fault was, where the root cause was. And until they utilized the expanded network edge visibility that AppNeta provides inside of our network management solution to be able to see what was happening inside of that customer's data center, especially at the edge of that customer's data center, and the network path that led from the customer's data center to the FIS data center. They quickly realized, and I mean within minutes, that a customer based inside of the customer's data center at the edge, a misconfigured F5 load balancer was the culprit, and that is why there was network latency or packet drops, and they did not have an exceptional customer experience with the application and data that FIS was hosting for them. Again, expanding visibility, being able to collect as much data as possible with that visibility, and then utilizing patented and expertise algorithms and triage workflows to be able to quickly find the root cause of a network performance issue, even when you don't own the infrastructure. That's the nirvana, isn't it, for NOC teams today?
Completely, you said it, right? Now we need to be able to look outside of our data center borders, right? And understand, is it my problem? Is it the ISP? Is it the cloud? And if we can quickly isolate that, it's OpEx that we are reducing in the end. So yeah. So
Nestor, one final question. I know I'm popping this up on you and you're going to give me a quick stare as what are you doing, but I know you can answer it because you've been in the business for a long time. Give us another customer example, especially in EMEA, across the pond from us here, around a customer of yours being able to achieve rapid isolation and the outcomes they were able to even see with business impact for that positive addition to their NetOps processes.
So yeah, one example would be, we have like an MSP. They were actually using several SD-WAN vendors, and again, each of them had their own console application tool set. So having the possibility to bring all that data together to standardize the workflows. Let me give you an example. If I having an issue with this SD-WAN provider or with ABC, I don't need to go into the specific console or the specific application to act upon the problem there. If I can bring all the data together and standardize the workflow, that is in the end time that I'm going to save, money that I'm going to save, and it's going to make it much more efficient, the troubleshooting and the isolation of the problem. So that would be an example of how we have ensure the network transformation when having modern networks, SD-WAN providers, etc., and how we can, as I said before, consolidate all that data, standardize the workflow, and help to bring all the visibility into a single pane of glass. And as you said before, now with the FIS example, it doesn't matter if the network is owned or not owned by us. We can just bring that data together, have AppNeta to provide that visibility end-to-end, to have visibility into each domain, and quickly determine which party they're responsible. So we can act quickly and we can just attack the right problem.
You know, it's funny, the clear example you gave around reducing tool sets, or at least consolidating the data they collect into one unified language that's been correlated and cleaned and normalized across different technologies. Nestor, this is a use case that our customers, as well as you and I, have been dealing with for 30 plus years. Too much data in too many different places that aren't talking to each other. It's like that low-hanging fruit of achieving NetOps success that's been around for decades. It's just gathering your data and doing something with it intelligently and quickly, which leads to so many other successes inside of network triage.
We often hear that we don't have from our customer, we don't have the time, we don't have the resources, right? Imagine if they have a disparate tool set, it's going to be really hard to achieve rapid and accurate isolation of the issues. So it's fundamental to standardize, to consolidate the tool set, and only having a single pane of glass, you can implement intelligent triage workflows that are going to help you to standardize, to automate, and be much more efficient when it comes to solve the issues of the network.
Nestor, I want to thank you again for all your great knowledge and our best practices around how to achieve rapid and accurate isolation of network performance issues in managed networks and those we don't manage, like ISP and cloud providers. I want to again remind our listeners that in the show notes you can download the white paper that Nestor and other team members of ours have written on this topic, as well as I will add the link to the FIS success story that explains some of this expanded visibility into unmanaged networks. Nestor, I know I'm going to be inviting you on another episode of the NetOps Expert around the 5 important steps in order to troubleshoot modern network performance. So I invite our listeners to stay tuned for that. Nestor, any final words before we sign off?
It's great having this conversation with you, Jeremy. I hope that our listeners have found it interesting, relevant, and it can really help or find some inspiration on their day-to-day network operation challenges.
Nestor, I miss you, buddy, and I really enjoyed this conversation as well. So again, I invite our listeners to stay tuned for another great episode, all things IT, all things network monitoring and management, on the next edition of the NetOps Expert. Thank you.